Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening to Wake Up, Look Up, a podcast where we connect events happening in real time to the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm Zach Wyrock. In today's episode, we're talking about how to stop being mean. This is prompted by an article I read this week by the social commentator David Brooks. And he was asking the question, hey, everyone knows our culture has gotten mean, but why? Why did we become so mean? It's a great question. He does a great job in the article of exploring why. And he actually gives 3 reasons that he thinks that we have become so mean as a culture. The first is we are hurting and lonelier than we've ever been. In fact, the number of people who would identify themselves as having 0 close friends, all right, so these are people saying, I have no close friends of any kind, from 1990 to today has quadrupled. There are 4 times as many people today who have 0 close friends as there were in 1990. So you can see that we are, as a culture, progressively becoming more isolated, more lonely, and more hurting. God wired us for community, and the absence of community never leads to more health. It always leads to less. So that's Brooks's first point. His second point is that because we don't have close relationships, we go looking to new areas to find identity and meaning and a tribe. And increasingly, we're going to politics. And here's a crazy stat for you. Young people who identify themselves as lonely are 7 times more likely to be involved in politics than young people who would not describe themselves as lonely. And Brooks's argument is pretty simple. He says, if politics is increasingly filled with people who are lonely and hurting, people whose only identity is what they're known to believe, and their only people group are those who already agree with them, what you get are a bunch of hurting people in the arena of politics. You get lonely tribalism, which is a great description of where we are right now politically. Brooks calls it the politics of recognition, meaning we're not engaging politically to try to make the world a better place. We're engaging politically to finally be heard, to be seen, to find some value. And as a consequence, we're doing violence to each other in an arena of politics in which we never used to find meaning. And then third, he makes the point that against all of these tides, historically, there were institutions that participated in what's called moral formation, meaning even though we had kind of debilitating voices in the past leading us to some difficult places, there were always competing voices encouraging us to kindness, to respect, to civility. But increasingly, as a culture, we have devalued moral formation. We don't even agree anymore that there is an objective morality. And as a consequence, we have ostracized institutions that in the past would have called us to be the best versions of ourselves. So how did we get to be so mean? We're lonely, we're overly political, and no one is allowed to tell us otherwise. So here's a question that Brooks isn't asking, but I'm asking. How do we get out of this? How do we stop being so mean? And I want you to hear the answer because it's an answer you can engage this weekend. Go to church. Become involved in your local church. Listen, the local church is designed by God to speak to all these things. It's a place where you should be going to find community, not just by sitting in a pew or a chair on a Sunday, but by joining a small group, by going to a Bible study, by actually engaging other people and forming meaningful relationships. The more you find those meaningful relationships within the church under the authority of Jesus, the less you'll need those kinds of identity things that politics offers. The more you begin to understand yourself as a child of God and as a brother or sister in Christ, the less you will need to find identity in politics, the less you will need to find identity in the tribalistic groups that demonize everyone who disagrees with them. And then finally, the more you lean into the local church, the more you will be challenged to become a moral person. Listen, the teaching of Jesus should shape us into people who love their neighbors, who think more of others than ourselves, who value service and generosity and sacrifice. The church offers us community, but it's the kind of community that will lovingly challenge and contradict the worst versions of ourselves. So if you feel increasingly lonely and isolated, if you feel like you're sliding into meanness, if you're waking up and saying, how did I get here? The answer probably is that you've become disconnected from the organization that God himself gave us to stem the tide in the direction of meanness. Go to church, join the church, participate in the life of the church, and become one person who's been rescued from a culture of meanness. And our prayer should be that as more and more people do that, the culture itself will change. We might be mean today, but through the power of Jesus and the presence of the church, we can be kind tomorrow. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. While you're here, we'd love to ask you to hit subscribe or to like so you get future content. If you listen to the audio version too, make sure you leave a review and a comment. That really helps. Consider sharing it on social media and helping us get the word out. And hey, while you're here, check out all the other content that Christ Community Chapel is putting out, including the videos that are around me right now.